Tonight, as you close your eyes and allow yourself to sink into a state of calm, I invite you to drift with me into a tale born from the green heart of Ireland. This is a story carried by the whispers of the wind, a story that has floated across lakes and valleys for centuries. It is the legend of the Children of Lir, a story of transformation, of time, of nature, and above all, of peace. Imagine yourself now standing on a gentle hillside in ancient Ireland. The grass is a deep, fresh green, swaying softly in the evening breeze. The air is cool and pure, carrying with it the faint scent of wildflowers. In the distance, you hear the quiet rhythm of water, a lake reflecting the fading colors of the sunset. The sky is painted in shades of amber, rose, and soft violet, slowly giving way to the calm embrace of twilight. In this ancient land lived a noble family. King Lir, strong and proud, and his 4 children, Eagon, Fionnuala, Fiachra, and Con. The children were bright, joyful, and filled with laughter that echoed through the halls of their stone home. They spent their days playing in the meadows, chasing butterflies, and running barefoot across the soft grass. At night, they would gather by the fire, listening to tales of heroes and gods, their eyes sparkling with wonder. The bond between them was unbreakable. Fionnuala, the eldest, cared for her brothers with gentle devotion. She guided them with kindness, and together they formed a circle of love so strong that nothing seemed able to disturb it. Their father, King Lir, watched them with pride, believing that their joy would last forever. But as you know, every story carries with it a turning point. And sometimes, change comes quietly, like a shadow sliding across the land at dusk. The winds shifted when Aoife, the new queen, entered their lives. She was beautiful and mysterious, with eyes that seemed to hold secrets untold. At first, she was gentle, embracing the children with kindness. Yet, beneath her graceful smile, something darker began to stir. One quiet morning, she led the children to the shores of a great lake. The water shimmered like glass under the sunlight, reflecting the sky above. The children laughed, skipping stones and chasing each other by the water's edge, unaware of what was about to unfold. Aoife's heart, clouded by envy, whispered to her, and with a voice that trembled like the wind, she uttered a spell. A mist rose from the lake, swirling around the children. Their laughter faded, replaced by a strange stillness. Wings unfolded where arms had been, feathers gleamed white as snow, and voices turned to soft cries. The children had become swans, graceful, eternal, and bound to the waters. And though the spell was heavy, Aoife's words carried a trace of mercy. She did not condemn them to silence. Their voices remained, gentle and melodic, so that they could still sing, and their song would forever carry their story. The lake embraced them, its waters rippling around their new forms. At first, they trembled, frightened, and uncertain. But soon, with Fionnuala's calm guidance, they spread their wings and floated upon the water. The ripples danced beneath them, and the sky above seemed to open, vast and endless. The years ahead would be long, and the journey filled with countless moments. But as swans, they would discover beauty in every sunrise, every ripple of water, every song carried by the wind. And tonight, as you listen to their story, you too can drift into that calm, carried on gentle wings into a world of peace. The four children of Lir floated gently upon the shimmering waters of the lake. At first, they felt the strangeness of their new forms, the soft sweep of wings, the cool touch of feathers against the breeze, and the way the water embraced them, no longer as children, but as swans. Fionnuala, ever the eldest and protector, guided her brothers with calm strength. "Do not be afraid," her voice sang through the air, pure and melodic. "Though we have changed, we are still together, and together we shall endure." Her words soothed the hearts of Aegon, Fiacra, and little Con slowly. Their fear gave way to wonder. They dipped their beaks into the water, watching the ripples spread like silver threads across the lake's surface. The world was no longer stone halls and grassy meadows. It was endless sky and quiet waters, a new home both strange and beautiful. Days passed, and the children began to learn the ways of the lake. They discovered that the water was alive with movement. Fish darting beneath the surface, reeds swaying in the shallows, dragonflies gliding like tiny jewels across the air. They learned to glide gracefully, their wings skimming the water's edge, leaving trails of light upon the ripples. At dawn, when the first rays of sunlight touched the lake, the swans sang. Their voices blended in harmony, a song so pure and soothing that even the wind seemed to pause to listen. Travelers passing by would stop in awe, their burdens lifted as the music wrapped around them like a gentle dream. Some said that to hear the swan's song was to forget sorrow, if only for a moment. At night, beneath the stars, the children would rest upon the still waters. They would look up at the sky, vast and filled with constellations, and Fionnuala would whisper stories to her brothers. She reminded them of their childhood running through fields, the warmth of their father's embrace, the laughter they once shared in the great hall. Her voice wove comfort into the night, keeping their bond unbroken. But not every moment was peaceful. The lake could change, just as the skies above it. Storms would roll across the land, turning the calm surface into a churning sea. The winds howled, rain lashed down, and waves rose high, tossing the swans in every direction. In those nights, the children clung to one another, wings folded tight, calling out to stay together. Fionnuala would always lead them, keeping her brothers close. "Hold fast, my dear ones," she would sing through the storm. "The clouds will pass, the sun will rise again." And always, the storm would fade, and calm would return, leaving the lake once more a mirror of the sky. As the years stretched on, the swans grew to know every corner of the lake. They found hidden inlets where the reeds whispered secrets, small islands where wildflowers bloomed untouched, and shaded coves where the water was cool and still. They learned the rhythm of the seasons, the blossoms of spring, the warmth of summer, the golden hues of autumn, and the quiet, frozen stillness of winter. In winter, the lake would harden with ice, and the swans would huddle close for warmth. Their feathers, white as snow, blended with the frozen world around them. Yet even then, they found beauty, the sparkle of frost on the reeds, the soft silence of snow falling from the sky, the way the moonlight turned the frozen water into a field of silver. Sometimes, travelers would pass by and hear the children's song echoing across the frozen lake. They would stop and listen, their hearts stirred by the haunting beauty of voices that seemed to carry both sorrow and peace. None dared approach too closely, for there was something sacred about the swans, as if the very air around them was touched by magic. Through all this, the children never forgot who they were. They held fast to their bond, to the love that tied them together. And though the days turned into months, and the months into years, their spirits did not wither. For what Aoife had cast as a curse, the children carried as a song. And in their voices, in their harmony, there was no defeat. Only the quiet strength of endurance and the gentle promise of hope. As the years passed by the first lake, the Children of Lir grew so familiar with its waters that it felt as though the lake itself had become a companion. But one day, as dawn rose soft and golden, Fionnuala sensed a stirring in her heart. A gentle whisper seemed to float across the air, as though the wind itself was calling them onward. "My dear brothers," she said softly, her wings reflecting the pale light of morning, "our time here is not forever. The spell binds us for 900 years, and this lake is only the beginning. We must journey on." Aegon, the most fiery of the brothers, lifted his head proudly. "Then let us face it. If storms could not break us here, nothing will." And so, with a final song to the waters that had sheltered them, the swans rose into the sky. Their wings beat in unison, carrying them higher and farther, until the lake lay behind them like a mirror of memory. They flew across green valleys and shadowed forests, their white forms gliding gracefully against the clouds. Beneath them, rivers wound like silver threads, and villages stirred to life. Farmers paused in their fields to gaze upward, pointing in wonder at the swans whose voices rang out like bells across the morning air. After many hours, they reached the shores of a vast new expanse of water. It was wilder than the lake they had known, stretching endlessly, with waves that rose and fell like the breathing of a giant. This was the Sea of Moyle, where waters churned with power and winds carried the scent of salt and storm. The swans settled upon the restless sea, and at once they felt the difference. The water was colder, the waves stronger, the winds less forgiving. It was not a gentle home, but a place of trials. At first, the days were kind. The sun would shimmer upon the waves, and the swans would glide with ease, their feathers glistening as they sang. But soon, the sea revealed its harshness. Storm after storm rolled in from the north. Thunder cracked across the sky, lightning split the heavens, and waves towered so high they threatened to swallow the children whole. The swans clung together desperately, their voices rising against the storm as a beacon to one another. Little Con would tremble, his small wings beaten by the wind. "Fionnuala, I cannot keep up," he cried. But she always answered with courage. "You are not alone. Con, I will hold you. We will hold you." And with her wings spread wide, she sheltered her brothers against the fury of the storm. Nights on the Sea of Moyle were long and cold. The salt air stung, and the endless horizon stretched into emptiness. Yet even in the harshest hours, they found moments of peace. They would gather close upon the calmer waves, their voices blending into songs that floated far into the night. Their melodies were both mournful and soothing, carrying the story of their endurance across the waters. Travelers who sailed nearby swore they heard voices upon the wind, voices unlike any human, but not wholly of the wild either. Some believed the swans were spirits, guardians of the sea, their songs guiding sailors away from danger. Others whispered that to hear them was a blessing, a promise of safe passage through the storm. Seasons shifted. Winters upon the sea were bitter and unrelenting, with ice forming on their feathers, weighing them down until even flight was difficult. But still they endured, huddling close, wings overlapping, warming one another through the freezing nights. In summer, when the waters calmed, the swans would soar high above the sea. From the heights, they could see distant shores, mountains rising in the far-off haze, and forests stretching endlessly inland. Yet the curse bound them still, keeping them upon the waters. Their freedom was in the sky, but their prison was in the waves. And though they faced hunger, storms, and loneliness, the bond between them never wavered. Fionnuala's voice was their anchor, her stories their comfort. She reminded them that no matter the hardships, their love for one another could never be taken. One quiet evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sea with fire, the swans gathered close. Their song rose into the air, soft and haunting, drifting over the waters like a prayer. And for that moment, the endless sea did not feel like a prison. It felt like a stage for their voices, a canvas upon which they painted hope. As the long years passed upon the sea of moil, the children of Lir grew stronger in spirit, though their bodies remained bound within the white forms of swans. The storms became familiar companions, the crashing of waves a rhythm that echoed through their days and nights. Yet still, every now and then, the sea revealed mysteries that surprised even them. One winter's night, when the moon was hidden behind storm clouds and the air was heavy with snow, the swans heard the sound of voices not their own. At first it seemed to be the howling of the wind, but soon the words became clear. A small boat, tossed among the waves, carried fishermen struggling to survive. Their cries for help pierced the storm. Without hesitation, Fionnuala stretched her wings wide. "We cannot let them perish," she said firmly. Her brothers hesitated. "But the curse binds us," Khan whispered. "What power do we have to save them?" "Even bound as swans," Fionnuala answered, "we still have wings, and we still have song." Together they rose into the air, circling above the boat. Their voices lifted in unison, weaving a melody so strong, so clear, that it cut through the chaos of the storm. The fishermen, hearing the unearthly chorus, steadied their hearts. Guided by the swan's song, they found the rhythm of the waves and steered their boat to calmer waters. When the storm passed, one man lifted his gaze and caught sight of the 4 white swans glowing faintly in the starlight. He fell to his knees in the boat, whispering a prayer. "Spirits of the sea," he said, "you have saved us. May blessings follow you forever." The swans drifted silently back into the mist, never revealing who they truly were. Yet within their hearts, they carried warmth. Even in their sorrow, they had the power to protect. Years turned, and seasons painted the sea with endless change. Sometimes the waters sparkled like glass, reflecting the sky so perfectly that it felt as though they swam between 2 heavens. At other times, black storms devoured the horizon, and lightning danced across the waves, Through it all, the swans endured. But the Sea of Moyle was not the end of their journey. After 300 years upon its restless waters, the time came for them to leave once more. The spell, ever cruel and unyielding, pulled them onward. They rose from the waves, their wings strong despite centuries of struggle, and flew toward a new destiny. Behind them, the sea stretched endlessly, but before them lay the shadow of mountains and the vastness of another lake, the waters of the Bay of Eris. This place was quieter, more remote, surrounded by cliffs where seabirds nested. The wind whistled through the rocks, and the sea below sighed with an ancient voice. Here, the children of Lir would spend the next chapter of their exile. At first, it seemed gentler than the Sea of Moyle. The waters lapped softly against the shore, and the air carried the scent of heather from the cliffs. Yet the silence of the place brought its own kind of loneliness. There were nights when the swans gathered close and stared at the stars, each lost in their own thoughts. Fionnuala wondered what had become of their father, Lir, and whether he still wept for them. Aegon dreamed of forests and hunts that he would never again know. Con longed for the laughter of children, while Fiacra, the quietest of them all, held his grief in silence. But the land was not empty. Travelers sometimes passed the cliffs, and when they heard the swan's song, they would stop, entranced. Word spread across Ireland that 4 enchanted swans dwelled by the Bay of Eris, their voices carrying the sorrow and beauty of ages. Poets came to listen, drawing inspiration for verses that would be remembered long after. Some said that kings sent messengers to seek out the swans, hoping to hear the truth of their tale. One autumn evening, as the leaves turned gold and the winds grew colder, a wandering druid came to the bay. He stood at the edge of the cliffs, his robe flowing in the wind, and raised his staff. His eyes, wise and filled with mystery, followed the swans as they glided across the water. "Children of Lir," he called softly, "your fate is bound by magic older than time. Yet know this, your suffering is not forgotten. One day, the spell will break, and peace will return to you." The swans listened in silence. Fionnuala bowed her head, her heart aching with both sorrow and hope. They had already lived through centuries of hardship, and yet still the end seemed far away. Still they sang. Their voices rose into the evening air, mingling with the cry of seabirds and the whisper of waves. And for a brief moment, the bay itself seemed to pause, listening, as though nature bowed before the purity of their song. The centuries drifted on, like endless tides rising and falling. At the Bay of Eris, the children of Lir had learned to endure, to survive through loneliness, storms, and the unchanging rhythm of waves. Yet deep within their hearts, they carried a quiet flame of hope, a belief that someday their curse would end. One winter night, the sea rose in fury. A storm unlike any they had known swept across the bay. Winds screamed, the waters crashed against the cliffs, and the sky was torn open by lightning. The swans huddled together, fighting to stay above the waves. "Hold on, brothers," Fionnuala cried, her wings aching with the effort. "This storm will pass, as all storms do." But the storm did not pass quickly. For 3 nights and 3 days, the sea raged, tearing trees from the cliffs and scattering stones across the shore. The swans were tossed endlessly, their feathers heavy with water, their voices drowned in the roar of the storm. At last, when dawn broke on the 4th day, the sea grew still. The swans, exhausted, floated upon the calm surface. Around them, the bay was changed, rocks scattered, cliffs crumbled, yet the waters sparkled once again beneath the morning sun. They had survived, and with survival came strength deeper than before. Time carried them onward, After 300 years upon the Bay of Eris, the spell tugged at their hearts once more. The winds shifted, and the swans rose from the bay, flying toward their final destination, the waters of Inishglora, a lonely island far to the west. The island stood apart from the world, shrouded in mist, with waves crashing endlessly upon its rocky shores. Few dared to sail near it, for it was said to be a place where the veil between worlds was thin, where the voices of spirits could be heard upon the wind. Here, the swans would spend the last 300 years of their exile. At first, the silence of Inishglora was overwhelming. There were no villages nearby, no travelers to pause and listen, no poets to write of their songs. Only the endless ocean, the cry of seabirds, and the whisper of wind across the rocks. But in time, the swans found a strange peace there. They learned to cherish the quiet, to let their songs drift across the sea, reaching distant shores unseen. Sailors passing far away claimed to hear music upon the wind, soft and haunting, and though they could not see its source, they felt their hearts grow calm. Seasons turned. Winters froze the island in ice. Summers warmed its cliffs with flowers of heather. The swans grew older, their feathers touched with the silver of time. Yet their bond remained unbroken. One day, as the sun sank low and painted the waves with gold, a ship appeared upon the horizon. From it stepped a holy man, clad in simple robes, carrying a bell that rang softly in the breeze. He came to the island and knelt upon the shore, gazing at the swans with wonder. "Children of Lir," he whispered, "I have heard your song across the waters. Long have I sought you, and now I see that the tales are true." The swans circled above him, their wings shining in the fading light. Fionnuala's voice rose gently, carrying both sorrow and gratitude. "We are bound by an ancient curse, Holy One. Our lives are long, our bodies not our own, but still we endure." The man bowed his head. "The old magic is fading. A new age dawns upon this land. Soon, your suffering will end." And so it was. The centuries passed until at last, the 900 years of their exile came to an end. The spell that had bound them so cruelly loosened like mist before the sun. Upon the shores of Inishglora, their feathers fell away, and they stood once more as the children they had once been, frail, pale, and aged by the weight of centuries. The holy man, with tears in his eyes, gathered them gently and offered prayers. Though their time upon the earth was short, they were finally free. The swans, now children once again, laid down upon the soft grass of the island. The sea whispered around them, gentle and kind at last. Fionnuala, with her brothers close beside her, closed her eyes. At last, we are together and at peace. Their breath slowed, their hearts quieted, and like the fading of a song into silence, they drifted away. But their story lived on. Travelers spoke of enchanted swans whose voices had once guided sailors. Poets sang of their sorrow and strength, and the people of Ireland remembered them as a symbol of love, endurance, and the unbreakable bond of family. And tonight, as you listen, their song still lingers soft as the wind, gentle as the sea, carrying you deeper and deeper into calm. Let their voices guide you, not through storms or centuries, but into rest, into peace, into sleep. Close your eyes now. Imagine the quiet waters of Inishglora, the waves brushing softly against the shore, the stars above shining clear and still. You are safe, you are calm, and just like the swans at last, you are free to drift away. Into sleep, into peace, into dreams,